One thing I noticed last night with the college football playoff, not a lot of great quarterback play, so maybe Alabama's got a good shot at this thing again next year.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama, HSA Radio Network's Luke Robinson, that's me. Bama Online's Jimmy Stein, that's him. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. I'll tell you about FanDuel in just a little bit. Thank you, everydayers, for being here every day, and thank you, newbies, for being here today. Jimmy, you had a post on Bama Online this morning talking about some of the quarterback play, Riley Leonard, Drew Aller, all those dudes. In fact, let me just pull it up here. You made a comparison in 2024. Drew Aller, these are his averages. Of course, the quarterback at Penn State, by the way, for those who don't know. 16 to 25 a game for 208 yards, 2 TDs, and a pick, and about 19 yards rushing. Riley Leonard, 16 of 25, oddly the exact same numbers, 174, 1 TD, 1 pick, and 58 yards rushing per game. Jalen Milroe, the exact same numbers, 16 of 25, but 219 yards, a TD, a pick, and 56 yards rushing. So I guess the first thing that comes to mind is I'm wondering if we're over-blaming Milroe, and I know people are tired of talking about that, but I'm just speaking out loud. And maybe we should have been blaming the schedule a little more because Alabama's schedule was clearly better than both Penn State's and Notre Dame's. And if, for those who think, oh, well, if we had Riley Leonard, if we had Drew Aller, maybe we would have been better. We probably would be in the same boat. That may be one aspect of this. The other aspect is I don't think we're nearly as far away from competing for a title again as some people might think. I did the SEC squad show yesterday, and I was kind of taken aback. I don't do that show all the time, so I was a little taken aback by the attitude of like Chris Gordy, who does Locked on SEC, does a great job. Zach Blackerby, Locked on Auburn. I know he's going to try and push the envelope in terms of just getting Alabama fans' ire up. I understand. And then the host from Missouri, who didn't say much, but I just got the same feeling like they all feel like Alabama's downfall is imminent. And I'm looking at those numbers, and I'm like, Riley Leonard and Drew Aller just took their teams to the semifinals. Jalen Milroe wasn't that far off. Our schedule was a booger bear, but we all think the quarterback situation may be better next year, oddly enough.
I think there's a chance Alabama will be better at quarterback. I think they'll be more consistent. I mean, I'll say this. I'm a big Ty fan, and I think Ty's going to win the job. That's what I think. But I also will tell you, Ty's not going to throw for 375 yards and rush for 115 against Georgia. That's not going to happen. But Ty may play better than more consistently than Milroe did, and maybe not have the clunkers that Milroe had against, say, Oklahoma and Tennessee, although they have a really good defense, and Michigan, where Milroe played really, really poorly. I think Ty's going to give us more consistency. He'll just lack the spectacularness of Milroe. Those numbers to me are super interesting on multiple levels. Number one, you have to be blown away by the fact that all three of them are 16 for 25. That should show how similar they all are as passers. Even more amazing to me, Luke, is just the Alabama, Notre Dame, and Penn State's offenses being so similar to where the quarterback would all throw 25 times a game and complete 16 of them, but run around quite a bit. Aller less than Leonard and Milroe, but Drew Aller does run around some. I was just blown away by how similar the numbers were. You make a great point about how, yes, the numbers are similar. Milroe's are slightly better in terms of yards passing and yards rushing, slightly better. But also Milroe did it against a tougher slate of game. Milroe put up those numbers against a better schedule than Penn State or Notre Dame played, even by quite a bit. I would say the lesson here is this. I agree, as I've always maintained, Milroe's over-criticized. Now, Is some level of criticism justified? Of course. He played really terrible in some games, and at times he did. That's a fact, but he's over criticized, as those numbers clearly show. You can win big with a quarterback putting up those numbers. Penn State did, Notre Dame did, but I will give Aller and Leonard this. I think they play with a little more consistency than Jalen.
They do, and I don't think they're asked to do quite as much. I think that is also a product of the schedule, because for the most part, they don't play teams that are, super powerful offensively, and they have pretty good defense. So I think that's okay. The one thing that stands out to me is this. We talk about 16 to 25 being across the board for those three guys. For Jalen Hurts, he was 16 to 25, 219 yards, a touchdown, an interception, and 56 yards rushing. If he had just done that versus this against Oklahoma, 11 of 26, 164, 3 picks, no touchdowns. And let me look at his rushing really quickly. I don't even think that was that good. His rushing was 7 yards. So I mean, his Oklahoma game was such a bizarre anomaly, and I'm tired of our talking about it. I understand some of you are too, but the more we look at these stats, I think it's fair to also say, look, it wasn't like Milroe did that all the time. This was an anomaly. It was just so ugly that it sticks out. It's like having a zit on the tip of your nose. It just.
How much would you be willing to bet? Speaking of Oklahoma, not making excuses here. Milroe was terrible against Oklahoma. I mean, terrible. I mean, Milroe did not give Alabama a chance to win the game. That's how bad it was. But in terms of how good Oklahoma is, I've talked about this. And ESPN has that strength of record metric. It's really good. As a matter of fact, for years, you could kind of track strength of record as to who was going to make the playoff. I mean, strength of record ranks teams based on how they did on the field against the schedule they played. Per ESPN strength of record, Oklahoma finished 30th. ESPN is saying Oklahoma was the 30th best team in college football in 2024. I wonder how many teams did Notre Dame and Penn State beat on the road better than Oklahoma?
God, I can't. I mean, off the top of my head, the only one I can think of potentially, Penn State played Illinois at home. Maybe, I don't know if Wisconsin would be ahead of them.
No, Wisconsin's not ahead of Oklahoma on the strength of record.
And who did? I mean, I don't think USC would be ahead of them.
It would be in the ballpark.
It'd be in the area code.
Yeah, that was a good road win for Penn. My point being is, as good as Penn State, Notre Dame are, and I'm not taking away anything from them. They deserve to be in the playoff, and they earned where they got. I'm also saying this. I don't think I would bet any more than $50 that Penn State or Notre Dame would beat Oklahoma in Norman.
I'm with you on that. Like straight up.
I know that I would straight up. How much would I be willing to risk to say Notre Dame and Penn State both beat Oklahoma? They probably would, but I wouldn't bet any more like $50.
Nah, I'm with you. And here's the thing.
That's kind of my point about how tight all these teams really are.
2 more points about this. I guess the question becomes, because again, from being on the Locked On SEC squad thing, they sort of roll their eyes at the idea of, Alabama's quarterback situation could potentially be better next year. Now, I know could is a big word. Anything could happen. But I'm saying, I feel like even though, again, I was a card-carrying member of the Jalen Milroe fan club for a long time, and people criticized you and me for it. But I think it could be better because it could be more efficient. Ask yourself this. Let's pretend like it's going to be Ty Simpson and not Keelan Russell. If it's Keelan Russell, I think the ceiling's way higher. But also understand.
If he beats out Ty, he's going to be really good.
Well, my point is that I think Keelan Russell can be better than Ty. I think his ceiling is higher. I also think the lack of experience will hurt him. Okay? So I think it will be Ty for those reasons. And my question to everybody out there is, do you think Ty can do better than 16 of 25, 219, 1 touchdown, and 1 pick a game? And my answer is yes. Yes, unequivocally. That's my answer.
I don't think it will be better. I think he may put up those numbers, but he's more likely to do it every week.
But Jimmy,
and not have the yo-yo of the way better than that and then way worse than that.
I said it wrong. Maybe I still think the 219 is about the same. I still think the 1 touchdown about the same. I'm hoping the 1 pick's not the same. I'm hoping it's half a pick average a game.
I rounded all those numbers for all of them, but I rounded up.
Understood. But I guess my other part of this would be the reason I think it'd be better is because instead of 16-25, I think it'd be 16-22. And right. You're like, what's the big deal? That's a huge deal.
It's a huge deal.
It's 3 fewer incompletions a game in football. Football's a game of inches. It's a big deal.
Incompletions aren't as bad as interceptions, but incompletions are literally wasted plays.
And they could be interceptions.
Gain nothing, and you're 1 play closer to punting. They're not good. But 16-25 is not terrible by any means. It's not terrible. It's not awesome. It's not awesome. It's not terrible. It's just fine. And I think 16-25 for 220 or 215-ish. I think that's going to be a Ty Simpson typical game.
But if it's 16-22 for the same numbers,
16-22 would be better.
He becomes probably one of the more efficient quarterbacks in the country. I mean,
there's going to be some rushing yards too.
I'm saying one of the more efficient.
There's going to be some rushing yards too. Ty Simpson's not Jalen Milroe, but I'll tell you who the style is going to be a little different, but Ty's, I think, roughly as athletic as Riley. I mean, he's in that Riley Leonard territory. Now, Riley is unique in his athleticism, a great high school basketball player. Can't be emphasized enough how good Riley was in terms of being a basketball player. He just didn't really have a clear position, I think, in terms of big-time college basketball. But Ty's a good athlete. There'll be some rushing yards from Ty. I just don't think Alabama will feature Ty's legs like they did Milroe's. Ty's legs will be more of a gravy, whereas they looked at Milroe's legs as maybe the number 1 asset on the offense.
And for the love of all things holy and pure, don't drop the ball before you cross the goal line. Tax season.
Oh, boy.
Tax season.
You see that face I made?
It's here. And look, this is a message from our partner, Intuit TurboTax. Are you tired of endless waiting, wondering, and worrying about your taxes? Well, now that's the thing of the past. You see, taxes don't need to be complicated or stressful. TurboTax is here to change the game by matching you with a TurboTax expert who can get to work on your return right away. No more waiting for answers. Why do you want to wait for answers? You need answers. No more wondering if you're missing out on deductions, whether you've got one from one form or 20 forms, whatever it is, they'll help you. TurboTax experts give your taxes their undivided attention, just like when you're listening to this program. You're only listening to us. You're not listening to any outside things because we're captivating, just like TurboTax, while you get the real-time updates on their progress from TurboTax. That's awesome. They'll give you updates on your taxes. If you want them, I can't think of anything more boring than that, but if you want them, they'll give them to you. So you can focus on what really matters. You won't have to lift a finger, but you'll get the peace of mind knowing that your taxes are being handled by the pros. Ready for a stress-free taxes and most money back guaranteed? Head over to TurboTax.com today and get matched with your expert who's ready to take your taxes off your plate so you can focus on your day. Only available with TurboTax Live full service real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guaranteed details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. By the way, apropos of nothing, all right, when you, and I need to Google this, but when you say, like, I've said my piece, do you mean, see, I've always thought I've said my piece like P-E-A-C-E. Like I've said my piece, like, because you don't say it in an antagonistic way. But then I've seen some people spell it P-I-E-C-E. Like I've said my piece of information to you. Which one is right, do you think? Have you ever thought of that?
I've never thought of, because for whatever reason, I don't believe I've ever used the phrase.
I've only spoken it. I've only spoken it probably subconsciously because I'm scared to get that part wrong. Because if you text something like I did have a girl.
Piece. That's my answer. Is Piece. But I'm not going to. Again, I'm not even betting $50 on that. Like I was willing to bet $50.
You got $50 to bet between Oklahoma, Notre Dame, and that, and you're going to do 25 each. That's what you're doing. On FanDuel.
I'm not betting more than $1 on its Piece, but I'm pretty sure that's right. But I never said that. There's all these cliches. Me and you talk about it, cliches all the time on the show. That's one I never have used. I don't think I've ever said that.
I do have one friend that always says, he scored 3 times in concession. I'm like, that's not how that works.
I don't think
it's succession. If he did it 3 times in concession, he gave up 3 times.
He conceded 3 times.
Anyway, all right. And one other thing that I got to say from the SEC squad show the other day, and this, I hate saying this out loud because there'll be Auburn people watching this.
Sounds like a good one. You've referenced it a lot of times.
Well, it was pretty good because we talked about, do you want to cheer for Texas or, to win the title this year as an SEC fan? And my answer was no, because I've been around some more Texas people and I'm like, I just can't let them win. I mean, we'll never hear the end of it.
John Miller, who does the Missouri show, is a real bright guy.
Oh, he's super smart. And I can tell you why he's super smart. Because on the show the other day, I noticed this. I kind of rewatched some of it. He never talked. It was me, super moron with no governor, saying all I want to. It was Chris Gordy asking questions, and then Zach Blackerby would chime in.
You and Zach arguing.
Yeah. Well, Zach Blackerby, who is much nicer in text and in person, but when he's on that show with me, he likes to get under my skin. And I'm always trying to be like, hey, I'm here for the whole family.
He's a showman. Zach's a showman.
He is a showman, and that's why his show is not theoretically, is actually number 1. But Zach did this the other day that made me mad, and it's going to keep making me mad. And I hate to admit this, but I feel like that's the only way I can get over it. We talked about the Oklahoma game came up again in that show, and he said something like, well, I bet you wish you had Jackson Arnold that game. I was like, look, if I could have traded Jalen Milroe for Jackson Arnold at halftime, I would have, And he said, oh, so what you're saying is you like Jackson Arnold better than Jalen Milroe. I was like, no. And then I said something else, and he said, well, Jackson Arnold ran all over y'all's butts. And I was like, somehow, some way, it's gotten out there. Like I had another Auburn friend of mine go, didn't Jackson Arnold run for 250 yards against y'all? I'm like, well, it seems like that, but that number seems high. He ran for 130. He threw for 68. He didn't do anything.
Yeah. I'm gonna run after the show. I'm gonna run the same numbers I did for Aller and Milroe and Riley Leonard. Jackson Arnold's numbers will be worse than those.
And again, I'm not hating on Jackson Arnold, but I'm just saying that I'm tired of being told Jackson Arnold is our arch nemesis. Oklahoma could have had anybody back there at quarterback. If we keep throwing pick sixes or throwing an interception that leaves it on the 5, we're going to lose.
Yeah, and he did play well against Alabama with his legs, and really almost all of it was in the first half. Oklahoma only scored 10 points on offense against Alabama, really. I mean, 10. So it couldn't have been too dominant. For instance, I would tell you this, without Jackson Arnold played well against Alabama, I'll tell you who diced up Alabama's Diego Pavia. Diego Pavia he's ripped Alabama up way more than Jackson Arnold did.
All right, we want to come back with some CFP thoughts, but because this segment has run long on some stupid cliche talk, I want to talk about Kalen DeBoer and Alabama and how they're prioritizing Sedarian Morgan. There's a great article on BOL about it. One of the first stops last week was to Sedarian Morgan, who's a top 20 overall junior, number 3 wideout in the class. Sedarian seems to really like Shepard, and who I think is great. I can tell you right now, I know Auburn's prioritizing him. Benjamin Russell has been, for the most part, an Auburn pipeline when they have people. Now, Benjamin Russell doesn't crank out D1 talent all the time, but they've had their fair share. El Toro Freeman was from there. Terrell Owens, who of course went to UTC, but they've had some other not bad players. Malcolm Simmons, who's at Auburn now. Now, I feel like this is one of those that if DeBoer can win this battle, I think the narrative can change about can't recruit in state. It's not going to get worse if he loses it, but I do know this. I think Sedarian comes from an Alabama fan family, I'll also admit this, that means very little these days. So don't assume because he grew up a fan of Alabama that Alabama's got this inside position. It may give them a slight advantage, very slight, super thin advantage. But in the end, it's going to be like everything else, right, Jimmy?
I think so. I think this is what little I know. We're just getting started with Sedarian Morgan's recruitment. I think it's going to be an Alabama-Auburn thing. I think someone's going to be the winner. He's going to go to one of the two, and the other one will be the runner-up. That's what I think today. Now, this could change as recruiting goes along, but today, that's what I think. I think NIL is going to be a factor in his recruitment. I think the proximity to Auburn and kind of being in that Auburnish area that you're always talking about, I think is a factor. He's probably going to be slightly more pressured to go to Auburn than Alabama, but he seems to be a kid who's going to make a business decision, and a business decision is not always who's offering me the most money in the short term. He's also going to be one of these revenue sharing guys. He's new. He'll be entering college football at a time that revenue sharing will already be in place. I think that's going to, it's going to affect NIL in a way. I think it's going to make NIL a little less important. And NIL may be in a different form by then. So, you know, I'd hate to pick today which one I think he's going to choose. To me, today, it's a complete coin flip, honestly. I mean, 50-50 to me, based on what little I know. And again, we're just getting started on the Sedarian recruitment. Hey, this is not one of those kids that we can say after the fact, well, Alabama didn't really want him.
No, they want him.
This is a high priority for Alabama.
Well, Auburn can't do that either, though.
And Auburn can't do it either. This is one both want badly, and both have a good shot. And you know, I kind of feel for kids in that situation, you know, where they're surrounded by Auburn or Alabama fans, and they're going to be letting down a lot of their friends and family. It's tough, really. It's tough.
You know, part of the game now, and especially considering how much people are getting paid, I mean, I think everybody will get over it eventually, and that's the way it works. So I just hope they have to get over it because he chose Alabama. FanDuel time. Look, from big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. You don't have to win the bet to get the bonus bets. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. Visit the website and share betting lines around your team or league and just let everybody else join in with you. They're going to love it. I'm telling you. Visit the FanDuel.com site to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make the playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sports book partner of, tell them, Jimmy,
the National Football League.
Did you see one of the comments the other day? I don't know if I told you this, that some other people were talking about our show, and one of them was like, yeah, the white-headed one says a lot of good facts, and the country one's kind of funny. I was like, you're probably from Alabama too. That's
probably.
I was like,
that's a good summation, though.
And, but I mean, I'm not. Don't have a hay straw coming out of my mouth.
I don't think of you as country, but and since I'm from Alabama, maybe I don't recognize it as I should, but I don't think of you that way. I think of you as living in Mountain Brook.
Well, when I was in high school and I went to Indian Springs, you know, hoity-toity Indian Springs, which I love, by the way, but everybody thought I was the countryest thing they'd ever seen in their lives. I mean, I might as well just swum up from a catfish pond. And then when I went back to Ellick City after being at Indian Springs for a while, they're like, oh, you sound all Birmingham. I'm like, I guess everybody just thinks I live in Sylacauga, right in the middle of everything, right between them. But anyway, so CFP last night, really quickly, boy, that game was a tough watch at first, but boy, that game got fun after halftime.
That was a fun game, particularly with all that was on the line. I don't know if that game is in September, whether we're saying that was one of the college football games of the year.
Yeah.
But with all that was on the line, it was definitely one of the college football games of the year. And shout out to my homeboy Riley Leonard.
I'm happy for him.
Big play. Very happy for Riley. I mean, he's such a great kid. I think everybody has seen him in interviews. That's the real kid. I mean, I know him. That's him 24/7. That is not putting on for the cameras. That's really that kid. As a matter of fact, one time I had a conversation with him. He was home. He was at Duke at this time, and he was in Fairhope for spring break. And him and I know his girlfriend's father really well, so we were all together. And I'm like, so you're home for spring break? And it was like, yeah, we're both, because his girlfriend's spring break was at the same time. She didn't go to Duke, but I said, well, are y'all going to parties? Y'all going to the beach? Y'all having fun at spring break? And he's like, we might go down to the beach to ride our bikes. I'm like, it's spring break. You're the quarterback at Duke.
Yeah, why is there a funnel in your mouth right now?
Yeah, and he's like, we might go to the beach and ride our bikes.
Well, he is, and he's pretty Christian. I mean, he is right. I mean, he's downtown Christian, like not messing around. But okay, I'm really happy for him. And the other thing that just stood out to me, again, like a zit on your nose, was the look of James Franklin going, "Oh my God, what do I have to do to beat any of these people?" He had this look. I mean, it was so stoic and just straightforward and staring into the ether. I mean, just
drives me nuts. The stat that they're beating James Franklin over the head with is something like he's 0-12 or 0-15 against the top 5. And I'm like, what's his record supposed to be when he doesn't have a top 5 team?
Yeah.
It would be different if Penn State was viewed as top 5. They have top 5 talent. I don't know that they have top 5 talent right now, but I get, what's his record supposed to be when he's never coached a top 5 team?
And how many of those losses were to a team that won a national championship or played in the playoffs? Like last year, they lost to Michigan. Yeah, Michigan went undefeated and won the title. I mean, again, I just look at it like y'all are killing this man. And the other thing is, most of those losses are probably to Ohio State. When you go and look at, I don't know how many of them there are, but
probably Ohio State.
Most of them are Ohio State.
Would be a big chunk. And when he was at Vanderbilt in the SEC, he probably played with the top 5 teams. You're holding that against him? I mean, that's why I'm saying that. I get what people are saying. Like, you'd think he'd get lucky once or use his great coaching acumen at least once to beat the better team. But to me, it's like, hey, consistency. James Franklin does a great job of beating all the teams he should without fail or very few fails, and losing to teams that are better than his. And to me,
the catch being there are very few teams that are better than his. It just so happens that 2 of them are annually in his conference. And then, he lost to Oregon this year. Well, Oregon went undefeated. They were the only team that went undefeated. I mean, again, he lost to Ohio State and Oregon.
Ohio State probably would win a national championship if he coached at Ohio State. I think. Yeah. I would say my shot at James Franklin would just be this. If I have a shot at him, it would be maybe y'all's talent should be a little better. Maybe your talent should be – I mean, I realize that in the NIL era, that's not very easy to do. But maybe they should be a little bit better talent-wise. Although it's not like they're untalented. I think they have top 10.
Abdul Carter is really good. But I mean, all right. Now, very quickly, Alabama's got a game tomorrow night, basketball, against Texas A&M. By the way, I hate that the girls got hammered at Texas last night because we've been giving them a shout-out. We got to give a shout-out to the swimming and diving team soon because somebody has asked us to, and we will. I got to do more research on it, though. Again, I'm just being honest here. But the basketball team is at Texas A&M tomorrow night. Texas A&M is one of the undefeated teams left, along with the 2 Mississippi squads, along with Auburn, along with us. And huge, monster, big-time game. No, it's not a must-win. It's just a big game. If Alabama wins, I mean, it's like a statement. Now, if Alabama loses, it's overcomable. But I'm just saying, I think this is one of those rare cases where even though we're the higher-ranked team, I think that if we win, we make a huge statement and we get more out of a win than we get killed for a loss. I really believe that A&M's number 10 team in the country. They just came back from about 20 down to beat an Oklahoma team that got its first loss against us, by the way. So A&M's a good squad. And it's going to be tough, but I'm telling you, Jimmy, the way Mark Sears is finally beginning to come around, I think we can do it.
A loss, exactly what you said. A loss means little. A win means a lot. And that's the way I'm looking at it. You said I'm not sure that the other contenders to win the SEC would win in College Station either. I mean, that's the way to look at it. I mean, would Auburn or Mississippi State stroll into College Station with a win? No, but I'm not sure Texas A&M is strolling into Alabama and winning either. I just think it's going to be a brutal, tough to win road game, but it's very possible Alabama win because this just in, Alabama's good, really good.
It's going to be a fun game. 7 o'clock ESPN. So I mean, do I wish it was an 11 o'clock game? Sure, but I mean, 7 o'clock. Put us in that fire. Let's go do it again. Let's go do it. I mean, it's cool. I'm not worried so much about winning the conference. I just want to make a statement. I really do. So
I'm glad you got some snow today. The rain, the weather here in Fairhope, I'm looking out the window. It is raining sideways and it's 43 degrees. That's just miserable.
No, that's about to happen here too. The snow was great for a little while. Now it's it's like I remember waking up this early and looking out and singing, this is so beautiful. It's like an Ansel Adams picture. It's just gorgeous. And then I had the thought to myself, in 30 minutes, our neighbor kids are going to come down here and they're going to track snow everywhere and kick over dog poop things that were buried by the snow and then track them into my house. And I'm going to hate life. So I had a beautiful moment and a horrible moment all at the same time. Both of them were right.
Very Luke. Very Luke.
Yeah. That's me.
Very
That's gonna do it for today's podcast. We will maybe be back after A&M game tomorrow night.
Maybe so.
Maybe so. We're kind of like that. So we hope to see you then. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.